A mother and her two young children found brutally murdered on Valentine's Day. Their bodies discovered in their own beds, in what should have been their safest sanctuary. No signs of forced entry, no weapon found, just silence, and a community forever changed. The date was February 14, 1985, and this Valentine's Day horror would become one of Colorado Springs' most haunting unsolved mysteries. Welcome to today's deep dive into two chilling Valentine's Day murders that remain unsolved to this day. Cases that prove sometimes the most horrifying stories aren't found in fiction, but in our own backyard. On that fateful morning in 1985, 37-year-old Cassandra Rundle and her children, 12-year-old Dietrich and 6-year-old Melanie, were discovered in their Colorado Springs home at 2512 Montebello Drive West. What made this case particularly disturbing was how the killer had managed to enter their home without forcing their way in, suggesting the victims might have known their attacker. Cassandra was a devoted single mother who worked as a real estate agent. Friends described her as cautious, especially about home security. She had recently divorced and was known to be extremely protective of her children. The night before the murders, everything seemed normal. Neighbors reported no unusual sounds, no signs of struggle, nothing to indicate the horror that would be discovered the next day. The bodies were found by Cassandra's boyfriend when he came to check on them after she failed to show up for work. What he discovered would haunt him for the rest of his life. All three victims had been sexually assaulted and strangled. The children were found in their beds, while Cassandra was discovered in her bedroom. The police investigation revealed several puzzling elements. Despite the violent nature of the crimes, there was minimal evidence of struggle. The house was not ransacked, and nothing appeared to be stolen. This suggested the primary motive wasn't robbery, making the case even more sinister. The investigators found themselves facing numerous questions. How did the killer enter the house? Why were there no signs of forced entry? Was it someone Cassandra knew and trusted enough to let into her home? Or was it someone who had access to a key? The case became even more complex when investigators discovered Cassandra had recently started dating again after her divorce. She had been seeing several men, all of whom were thoroughly investigated. However, none could be definitively linked to the murders. The investigation took a significant turn when detectives learned that Cassandra had expressed concerns about a suspicious man in the weeks leading up to her death. She had reportedly told friends about someone who seemed to be watching her house. However, she never filed an official police report, perhaps not wanting to seem paranoid. The Colorado Springs Police Department conducted extensive interviews with neighbors, colleagues, and Cassandra's ex-husband. DNA evidence was collected from the crime scene, but in 1985, DNA testing was still in its infancy. The technology available then wasn't sophisticated enough to provide the detailed analysis we have today. One of the most frustrating aspects for investigators was the timing of the murders. Valentine's Day meant many people in the neighborhood were either out for dinner or deliberately staying inside for romantic evenings. This resulted in fewer potential witnesses than usual. The investigators did find one promising lead. A neighbor reported seeing an unfamiliar car parked near the Rundle home late on February 13th. However, in the darkness, they couldn't identify the make or model with certainty. This potential lead, like many others, eventually went cold. Another disturbing detail emerged during the investigation. Cassandra's real estate work meant her name and photo were publicly displayed on advertisements and listings. Investigators considered whether a client or someone who had seen these advertisements might have developed an obsession with her. Several suspicious individuals were investigated, but none could be conclusively linked to the crimes. Hey, true crime sleuths! If you're as invested in uncovering the truth as we are, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Every view helps us shed light on these forgotten cases. In 2001, with advances in DNA technology, the case was reopened. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation re-examined the physical evidence using more modern techniques. While they were able to develop a DNA profile of the killer, it didn't match anyone in the criminal database. This profile remains on file, waiting for a potential match. In 2019, investigators announced they were exploring genetic genealogy as a possible avenue to solve the case, similar to the method used to catch the Golden State Killer. However, as of 2024, no significant breakthroughs have been reported. The Rundle family's relatives continue to seek justice. Cassandra's sister has been particularly vocal, ensuring the case isn't forgotten. She maintains contact with the Colorado Springs Police Department's cold case unit, hoping that someday, someone will come forward with the crucial piece of information needed to solve this case. Now, let's shift our focus to another Valentine's Day tragedy that occurred 14 years earlier. On February 12, 1971, young lovers Jesse McBane and Patricia Mann attended a Valentine's dance at Watts Hospital in Durham, North Carolina. They would never return home. Jesse McBane was 20 years old, a student at North Carolina State University. Patricia Mann, 20, was a nursing student at Watts Hospital. They had been dating for several months, and friends described them as deeply in love. Their future seemed bright and full of promise. The couple was last seen leaving the Valentine's dance around midnight. When neither returned home, their families became concerned. Jesse's car was found the next day at Croasdale Country Club, a local lover's lane. The windows were rolled up, the keys were in the ignition, and Patricia's purse was still inside. But there was no sign of the young couple. 9 days later, on February 21, 1971, their bodies were discovered in a secluded wooded area off House Street in Orange County. Both victims had been tied up with ropes and strangled slowly, suggesting a torture killing. The medical examiner determined they had been killed within hours of their disappearance. The investigation revealed disturbing details about their final moments. The killer had apparently toyed with them, repeatedly tightening and loosening the ropes around their necks. This methodical, sadistic approach led investigators to believe they were dealing with someone who had possibly killed before. Multiple law enforcement agencies became involved in the investigation, including the Durham Police Department, Orange County Sheriff's Office, and the State Bureau of Investigation. They developed several theories about the killer's identity. One prominent theory suggested the murderer might have been someone in the medical community, given Patricia's connection to the hospital and the methodical nature of the killings. Investigators interviewed hundreds of people and pursued numerous leads. They looked into similar cases in the region, wondering if there might be connections to other unsolved murders. However, no definitive links were established. The case took an interesting turn when investigators identified 3 persons of interest, all of whom worked in the medical field. However, despite extensive investigation, they couldn't gather enough evidence to make an arrest. These suspects have never been publicly named. In 2021, 50 years after the murders, investigators announced they were using new DNA technology to re-examine evidence from the case. The Orange County Sheriff's Office has been working with genetic genealogists, hoping to finally identify the killer. Today, both cases remain open. The Rundle family murders and the McBane case stand as stark reminders that even on a day dedicated to love, darkness can emerge. These cases continue to haunt their communities, and investigators haven't given up hope of solving them. As we conclude this Valentine's Day special, remember that somewhere, someone knows something about these cases. If you have any information about either the Rundle family murders or the McBane case, please contact the respective law enforcement agencies. Sometimes the smallest detail can break open a decades-old case. Until next time, stay safe, and remember, justice may be delayed, but we must never stop seeking it.